Hello again and welcome back. Dr. Mack here from BehaviorAdvisor.com. In this installment of the podcast, we'll be talking about the teacher's influence on the behavior of the youngsters. I've always wondered, how is it that kids with these smiling faces in the younger grades can turn to this? What is it that school does to them that turns this into that? How is it that well-intentioned, well-trained teachers in front of highly motivated kids fail? Well, there's probably a number of reasons that we ought to consider. First of all, that youngster may not be developmentally or academically ready for the material. It could be that our instructional style is not matching well with the way that kid prefers to learn or show his or her knowledge and skill. It may be that the examples we use, the emphasis we put on things, may not match the inner core of the youngster. Perhaps it's contrary to their culture, their ethnicity, the ways of thinking, of believing, and of acting. Perhaps the youngsters don't see how this material is relevant to their everyday life. I'm still trying to figure out why I learned to divide a fraction by a fraction. Now, when you're reducing a recipe, you're multiplying a fraction by a fraction. If I am using division of fractions by a fraction, I don't know how I'm doing it. Why did I learn that? Well, I was told you need to learn this because it's on the test on Friday. I'm not seeing the relevance to my life. Perhaps the classroom is not inviting enough. The youngster doesn't feel welcome there. It could be because of our kinesthetics. Our body language is different than what they're used to seeing. Or it may be that we're not the captains of our classroom. It's those three kids over there on the side of the room that are making everybody's life, including the teachers, miserable, and this youngster does not feel safe in that classroom. Some teachers are stage 3 types. If you're unfamiliar with that term, go to BehaviorAdvisor.com, click on free podcasts and videos, scroll down to Dr. Mack's Mountain, and find out how some teachers end up in the stage 3 mean, nasty disciplinarian phase. And that coercion does harm to instruction, to learning, to relationships with kids, to motivation, to behavior. Some folks are overly demanding. They seek perfection. Surprisingly, research shows that an emphasis on perfection actually works against achieving perfection, against high achievement, against motivating youngsters to achieve higher. Youngsters will achieve higher if we focus on them putting forth their best effort and provide them with helpful feedback rather than focus on getting it right. Or there's overemphasis on competition in the classroom. The winner of the week who's posted every Friday on the board, it doesn't take very long for kids to figure out only 2 or 3 students in that classroom have any chance of becoming the winner of the week, if it's based upon points or upon scores. So therefore, why try? We're going to take you back to 1978. Yes, the hairstyles have changed, the clothing styles have changed, but the behavior has not. How do we find this video? You'll want to go to BehaviorAdvisor.com, click on free podcasts and videos, then scroll down to training videos. Once you're inside there, look for the video featuring Joe. As you're viewing that video, consider, what does Joe bring to the table? What internal characteristics are affecting his behavior? What is it about his life space and his experience that might be bringing out the actions that we see? Consider, too, the teacher's influence on the situation. What is the teacher doing incorrectly, and what would be your suggestions to this teacher for improving practice? Pause your podcast right now, go to Behavior Advisor, click on free podcasts and videos, find the training videos, click on Joe, consider the influences found within Joe and the influences of the teacher. Welcome back. You've had the opportunity to view the video, so my question to you would be, what influences might reside inside of Joe? What might be going on with Joe that would bring out this sort of behavior? Here are some possibilities. Let's see if your guesses align with mine. Perhaps this youngster doesn't have the skill or the knowledge base to adequately engage in the activity. Maybe this youngster has special needs and needs the supports provided by specially trained teachers. Maybe this kid is having trouble understanding how it's connected to his or her life. Why do we have to know about the 13 colonies of the future United States? Perhaps it's a competitive environment. Questions are going to be fired out. The teacher is going to indicate that answer is right, that answer is wrong. That competitive environment and Joe's belief that he cannot succeed within it brings out the defensive behaviors. I will defend myself from embarrassment, from public shaming. I will engage in behaviors that will bring positive attention upon me from my peer group. Joe may be thinking, I failed before. I felt small. I do not want to appear dumb in front of my peer group. Perhaps the environment within the classroom promoting perfection has not viewed mistakes as an opportunity to learn, that from your mistakes and your analysis of them, you can then pursue a higher goal. Talking about goals, a little bit later we'll be talking about Dreiker's mistaken goals. It may be that this youngster actually perceives the teacher highly, but is engaging in certain behaviors to get attention, to get power, in an errant attempt to connect with the teacher. Odd analysis? We'll find out later in the next segment of this podcast. However, continuing on, some other things that might be going on inside of Joe. Maybe he's a disorganized kind of kid. Perhaps he doesn't have the prerequisite skills to succeed in this task. He has what we call Swiss cheese knowledge or Swiss cheese skills. There are holes in his knowledge and his skill base. It may be that, cognitively speaking, he's not capable of higher level conceptualization, problem-solving strategies. Perhaps intrinsic or interactive concerns are in play here also. Did you come up with anything else? How about the teacher? What was the teacher's influence on Joe's motivation or lack thereof of the behaviors that were displayed? And I would want to ask this teacher, would you want to be a student in your own classroom? What did you notice in the way of teaching blunders? And what would be your suggestions for improvement? I suspect you noticed the need to plan and implement a more captivating lesson. When that lesson starts out, there should be a moment of awe, of captivation, drawing the kids into the lesson, spurring their interest. Another strategy would be to get out from behind that desk. That desk is a physical and symbolic barrier. It places that teacher in a different environment than that of the kids. He's got to get out from behind that desk, feel comfortable moving about the room. Even if his voice can't be made any more interesting, just the movement, getting the kids' eyeballs following him would be something that would at least change the scenery, help to keep them awake. However, the main thing is he's got to plan a lesson that captures the kids' attention and implement one that highly motivates them. He could pick up some ideas from Jacob Koonin, one of the pioneers in the area of classroom management. He spoke and wrote at length about how one manages behavior with one's teaching style. A lot of advice can be found on behavioradvisor.com. Click on the button that says Intervention Strategies. Once inside, click on the page titled Managing Behavior with Your Teaching Style. I also hope to have a podcast on Jacob Koonin's ideas sometime in the near future. This teacher could have prevented that behavior from ever coming out in another way. Greet the kid at the door. Perhaps talk about what the lesson's going to entail. Say, Joe, I'd like to ask you this question. Do you know the answer to it? If not, we prep him to be successful in answering that question sometime early on in the lesson. Over time, not just today, but over time, we want to build a positive relationship with this youngster. It is the key to motivation, feeling connected to another important, influential person. It is human nature to want to cooperate with and please someone who we respect and admire. This teacher also wants to work on positivity, catching kids being good, using what's known as the ripple effect, like tossing a pebble into a still pond and the effect moving out. We would want to thank those students who had opened up their books to page 38, hoping that Joe would then, in an attempt to gain some recognition, open up to page 38. We want to focus on effective praise. What is effective praise? You can go to behavioradvisor.com, click on Intervention Strategies, and scroll down to the page that reviews the research on the types of praise that are ineffective, the types of praise that are actually counterproductive, but pay special attention to the praise that motivates kids to want to put forth their best effort. We've completed our look at the possible reasons why youngsters might not be enthused about cooperating with our directions, our routines, our activities. In the next segment of this podcast, we will be talking about how we determine, how we assess, how we identify the reason for a particular kid's lack of cooperation. Please join me in that next installment.